know, Jacob. I know they are the best in the world. Please know they will. And will be the very best. When you talk, he will be coming. He will be a good friend. I love Centralia Quest.
Jacob has now discovered the terrible secret of his quest. Now, how will he and his friends work to destroy the Dark Lord? The capital of Centralia, Centralia City, is evacuating residents. With the land now in complete chaos, Jacob and Matt must do everything possible to stop the Dark Lord. Yaga my laga, yaga! Guy Fieri.
I wish I knew what was going on. This book is beyond my reading level.
Katy Perry. Part 9. Chapter 1. No, Jessica! Cried Matt as a giant black wolf pulled him towards the trees. Jacob was being bitten by one on top of him, next to the edge of the cliff. Matt, help! Use your fire breathing and stop crying! Yelled Jacob. Matt was pulled into the trees, though. Suddenly, Jacob had a vision. It was of him picking up a rock and using it to hit the wolf, then climbing down the cliff. When Jacob awoke, the wolf had its teeth locked to his shoulder. In pain, Jacob screamed. After remembering the vision, Jacob... Jacob reached his left arm to the side and picked up a small, sharp rock that he threw at the wolf's face. Jacob had been known for having rock-throwing skills, and this one did the trick. The wolf jumped up in pain, and Jacob pulled himself over to the edge. He was almost there when behind him he heard an explosion, and the trees began to burst into flames. Then out came Matt, breathing fire out of his mouth and sobbing. Jacob! She's dead! Sobbed Matt. I don't know what we'll do. Jacob suddenly remembered the other thing he had seen in his vision before the wolves came. The gems were for nothing, unless somehow it was a fraud. Jacob didn't know, and he was about to tell Matt, but he found himself slipping toward the edge, just a couple feet away. Help, Matt, help! Yelled Jacob in panic. Matt came running over, but stopped as 3 giant eagles landed next to him. Jacob was now holding on by his fingertips. He looked down. He wasn't afraid of heights, but he was still started to cry seeing how high up he was. Then he realized that he needed to climb down, found a handhold, and started the descent. Jacob had come to have much skill climbing after spending 7 years climbing the mast of the ship and climbing the treacherous firehead. This was different, though. There were lots of loose rocks and not as many good handholds. About halfway down and 30 feet up, Jacob grabbed a loose rock and was sent to hold on with one hand. After finding a different one, he continued down and reached the bottom without mishap. Jacob was next to the bottom of the waterfall, which fed into a stream going through a small canyon on the other side of the gorge. Looking down, Jacob gasped in horror as he realized in front of him lay Princess Jessica's crown. Jacob looked at the river, and floating was a piece of her dress. Stunned, Jacob sat down on a fallen log. Jacob was pondering about how they would stop the Dark Lord now that the gems weren't anything important, when he remembered what he had just run away from, and that Matt was up there with them. Jacob called up to Matt. Matt, are you up there? A blast of fire answered his question. Get down here fast, called Jacob. A couple minutes later, Jacob saw Matt leap off the cliffside. Matt, you crusty loaf of bread, what are you doing? Screamed Jacob. Matt was about to hit the ground when a red dragon, like the one back in the desert, came flying under him. Matt landed right on its back, circling Jacob, then landed. Matt, what were you thinking? Exclaimed Jacob. I called He-Dog over here. He caught me. Everything was okay. I knew what I was doing, assured Matt. What about those guys up there? Jacob pointed his finger up at the top of the cliff. Oh yeah, me and He-Dog took him out, answered Matt. Wait, why is his name He-Dog? It's a dragon, exclaimed Jacob. He-Dog was fire-breathing some fish. No, Jacob, it's He-Dog, D-A-W-G dog, exclaimed Matt. How did you get He-Dog over here? Asked Jacob. Okay, you know what? Enough with the questions about me. I mean, I am awesome and all, but what did you find out while vision finding? Asked Matt. Oh, shoot, yes, our quest is all for nothing. The gems kind of don't do anything. We've been tricked, explained Jacob. Wait, what? Are you telling me that I had to travel 100 miles, fight the Jawcraw, lose Jessica, fight the Nether monster, deal with the Melissa-Jessica mix-up, run from a giant battle, climb up Firehead, fight the snake dude, travel the Yemen desert with the great wizard who can't resist blowing those dudes up, and fight those guys up there for nothing? Screamed Matt. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to tell you right now, assured Jacob. Well, that stinks. Oh well, I have my dragon buddy now. He and I can travel the world, and I can use him to win Melissa's heart. You know, how are we even gonna beat the Dark Lord anyway? Asked Matt. Dude, so you just quit? After all we have done, you're just gonna quit? Asked Jacob. Oh no, oh innocent and naive little Jinky Poo. No, I'm not quitting. I'm simply just putting my efforts into something way cooler and possible. My old man always said that quitting is to stop trying. I have not stopped trying, oh dear me no. I'm trying something different, explained Matt. So long, Jake my mate, I leave you this day, exclaimed Matt, and he climbed onto Heat Dog and flew off. Jacob sat there stunned. Had his best friend just abandoned him here when so much was at stake and he needed him most? No, Jacob thought, he couldn't just leave. He'll come back laughing in about 10 minutes that I'm so gullible. 10 minutes later, and Matt didn't come back. Jacob was alone, with the sun going down behind him, making the cliff cast a large shadow over the gorge. Chapter 2. Matt circled over a shocked-looking Jacob and headed off over the mountains. This was great. He didn't have to fight anymore, and he could just focus on getting Melissa. And in about a week, he could be married and living in a house in Toshism. Everything was going to be perfect. Looking down, he saw large forested mountains stretched out beneath him. As he went northeast, he passed over the Goroth River, its winding bends winding through mountains. Matt loved being on top of Heat Dog. He could feel the cool, early autumn breeze rush past him as he soared across the land. Finally, the sun went down, and Matt landed Heat Dog on a large rock clearing surrounded by tall pines on one of the mountains. Matt used what outdoor skills he had to roll a log over to a spot near a creek, and leaning against it, a whole bunch of sticks. Once inside, Matt planned out what he would do the next day. He would fly around Centralia looking for Melissa. Once found, he would marry her, have her meet his parents, and then he would buy a house on the other side of town as his folks. And the end, no questions asked. Matt wondered if his folks would approve of him marrying at that age. Was it 15 by now? Yes, at age 15. That's probably old enough, Matt thought. The next day he got on Heat Dog and set off again, without breakfast. It was a cool, overcast morning, and as he flew over a large valley surrounded by mountains, he realized that this may not be a good idea. He was abandoning the anti-dog resistance, and what if he couldn't find Melissa, or she wouldn't agree to marry him? Or what if his folks got super mad for getting married to Melissa and they wouldn't let him? All these thoughts were enough to turn Matt around back towards Jacob. Chapter 3. The next day, Jacob was hiking through the woods, up back to the top of the cliff. As he climbed up a large boulder near the top, he turned to see Matt landing next to the waterfall. Finally, Jacob thought. He came back. Jacob hiked back down to meet him. 20 minutes later, he arrived next to Heat Dog and Matt, who was cooking a fish with his fire breath. Hello, Jacob! Came to join me, I see, exclaimed Matt. You stinking crusty loaf of bread! Why did you just leave me back there? Asked Jacob angrily. Oh, well, I thought I was actually going to marry Melissa, but I figured it was a bad idea, so I came back here. You're welcome, explained Matt. The next day, they set out up the mountain Jacob was hiking the day before. At the top, they set out south along a narrow ridge, back to the grove of aspens. It was midday when they made it back, and they ate some fish Matt had packed along. After finishing, they walked through the trees and beheld the carnage in front of them. Dead guards that Bob had brought along lay sprawled out around the slope. Burned wolves and eagles lay tattered with wounds as they lay dead on rocks. Bob was nowhere to be found, though. I hope Bob's okay. He was a dude, said Matt. Bob is the great wizard. If he's dead, then we're in trouble. He's the leader of the resistance. If he's dead, then all we have is lame dude to help us. Zemetis is captured, and Richard and Rob are dead, exclaimed Jacob. Well, we don't know that. Some other cool guy could show up, cried Matt. As they climbed down the steep granite face of the mountain, Jacob turned to Matt. Hey, Matt, where's Heat Dog? We could just ride him, said Jacob. Oh, yeah, I didn't think of that, exclaimed Matt. After whistling in the air, Heat Dog flew overhead and landed next to him. Matt, how did you get it to do what you say? Asked Jacob. Oh, right. Remember when I told you I knew dragons were flying in the distance? Asked Matt. Yes, I remember that, answered Jacob. Yeah, well, I have some connection with dragons or something. We, share a bond, answered Matt. That is so not fair! All I have are visions that only come occasionally, and you have fire breath and dragon bro. Your powers are way cooler, whined Jacob. When they reached the bottom, the sun was getting low in the sky ahead of them. As they started to make camp next to some oak trees, they heard hooves in the distance, about 50 yards away. Matt, who do you think it is? Asked Jacob. I don't know, probably someone to pick us up, said Matt, uninterested. Suddenly Jacob had a vision. It was of Southern soldiers arresting them and taking them to a heavily guarded prison. Jacob jumped up fast. Matt, we have to hide. It's Southern soldiers. Ugh, I'm almost done with this fire, cried Matt. Matt, did you not hear me? There's Southern soldiers over there, and you're more worried about your flippin' fire to care, yelled Jacob. Okay, fine, let's go, said Matt. They ran and dove into a bush behind them, just as a platoon of Southern soldiers came into view. Jacob, look! Those are Southern soldiers! Whispered Matt. Yeah, I know. That's what I just said, said Jacob. When they passed, Matt exclaimed, Jake, my mate, I'm impressive, I must say. By the way, do you like my nickname I made you? Asked Matt. Sure, whatever, but we got to get going. This area, too, must have fallen into enemy hands. Horman was neutral when the war started a few weeks ago. There will be more soon, I bet, said Jacob. They both got on Heat Dog and set out over the mountains towards the Horman River. Chapter 4. 2 days later, Jacob and Matt found themselves over the Tofan Sea. Jacob had seen the wide ocean many times before, but for Matt this was a new experience. Wow, it's amazing! I've never seen anything like it. It's so huge! Exclaimed Matt. Later that day, Jacob got a view of where the Horman River began, as well as Horman City, the capital, as well as where Jacob was born. Hey Matt, look over there. That's the Horman River. Jacob pointed east to the shore. Wow, you lived on that river? It's huge! Cried Matt. Looking far east, Jacob got a glimpse of Grand Peak, the tallest mountain in the Horman Highlands. Even though the Susie Lake could be anywhere along the Horman River, Jacob still got nervous when he saw all the vessels lined up on the Ingersoll docks across the river. Though this place was familiar, Jacob sensed something was different. There was almost no ships on the water. Then Jacob realized Southern Alliance ships were the only ones out there. Southerners had taken the Horman capital. A couple minutes later, Jacob beheld what lay on the other side of the river in Centralia. Intercal lay destroyed. Rubble and damaged buildings lay sprawled across the town. This didn't look like the work of soldiers. The Dark Lord must have been sending his creatures and magic on the town. Suddenly, Jacob had a vision. It was of Centralia's generals in prison. They looked terrible, being deprived of their basic needs. Zemetis turned to General Poi and asked him if Centralia troops would come before their death later that day. General Poi just nodded his head, then lowered his head. Then, after noise from up above, 5 Centralia assassins burst through the door, freeing their prisoners. That night, they landed on the Hosmine shore, a giant beach with soft white sand stretching for miles. That night, next to a fire made by Matt, they talked about Jessica. Are you still sad about the whole Jessica thing? Asked Jacob. Died! Twice! I was at first because she came back and then died again, but I'm already over it. I realized that Melissa's just as good looking as Jessica, and Melissa's still alive. I guess you could say I have a replacement. Explain, Matt. Okay, that is just wrong. You're replacing Jessica with Melissa just because she looks the same? Accused Jacob. Yeah, pretty much. Agreed, Matt. The next day they set off again, still living off of fried fish from Matt. Finally so sick of eating seafood 3 times a day, 7 days a week, that they landed next to a field east of Seafair City. They were now in Centralia, and Centralia soldiers patrolled streets as citizens fled town. Finally finding an open store, they walked in. We need 3 loaves of bread, please, said Jacob to the baker at the back of the room. Ah, yes, coming right up. You two are lucky. Last one's here. Everyone has been buying bread for me before leaving, seeing as I am one of the last bakers in town," explained the man. The baker was tall black man with black skin and a beard. As he handed Matt the bread, Jacob asked him how far Southerners had come. "Oh, yes, they've taken was mine just a couple days ago. As you two obviously know, the Centralia military has called for retreat, and all the citizens are told to leave as well. I head up to Nashington tomorrow. I hope Centralia can defeat the Southerners soon. Did you hear that the Hebron border has fallen on the south? That's why no Hebron troops can help out. They're too worried about Nagistan down south. Anyway, you two have a nice day. Wait, what were your names exactly?" asked the man. I'm William, and this is Billy," Matt pointed to Jacob. "We're bringing your folks some bread before we leave," lied Jacob. "Okay, you two be careful now, all right? Don't want you being hurt no more." "Oh, dear me, no," called the man as they walked out the door. That night they slept in an inn next to the main road. No one had bothered to ask why two teenagers were out by themselves. Everyone was too busy to care, people leaving their shops and homes behind to flee the Southerners. The next day they flew over Davidton, and that night landed on an island in the Great Delta where the Johanna River emptied it out into the ocean. That night was cold, and they were soaked after Heat Dog hit the water while landing. Finally, the next morning, they landed in the Nashington Hills. "Okay, so Jacob, I don't want to be rude or anything, but your face isn't that great. I know that isn't your fault. It's your parents for meeting each other, but you don't have a very good face," explained Matt randomly. "You know what, Matt? I'm about to make your face even with mine!" cried Jacob as he nailed him in the nose. Matt fell over in pain and shot a fire blast at Jacob, scorching his hair. "Ah! My hair's on fire!" screamed Jacob as he hit his head on some grass, catching it on fire. After Matt used his shirt to put out the fire, he lifted Jacob to his feet. "Sorry, man. I was just mad you punched me," apologized Matt. "It's okay. I just punched you because you said I was ugly for no reason," spat Jacob as he glared at Matt. That night, while Heat Dog was asleep, they decided what their plan was to destroy the Dark Lord. "I think we should find out where he is, and the mean Heat Dog can burn him," said Matt. "That's a horrible idea. He'll just blast you with some dark magic and you'd be dead. We should go to the capital of Gisina, wherever that is, and convince them to help Centralia troops fight the Southerners and black soldiers. That is all I think we can do," explained Jacob. "No, that's not all you can do," said a voice from behind. When they turned their heads, they saw Bob standing in the moonlight. Chapter 5.
Horrifying.
"Bob! You're alive!" exclaimed Matt. "Yes, I am, and I have no idea what is the matter with you two. You just fly away in a dragon, leaving the white gem behind? Have you completely abandoned the quest, or do you two have no brains?" yelled Bob in disgust. "Bob, my vision I had on the edge of the cliff, it was that the gems don't do anything. We're going to Guisina to do some good. We thought you were dead," exclaimed Jacob. After things were settled, and Bob agreed that was the best action to take, they went to sleep, and in the morning took Bob on Heat Dog up to Guisina. That night they slept in an inn in Altascols. Altascols was packed. People from all over the country fleeing Southerners came to the beautiful northwest area. With the Alta Mountains to the east and the sea to the west, it was an amazing place to live. The cities in the area were crammed with people, though, and rumors of disease epidemic surging through Altascols. Altascols was named after the Alta Mountains and the many scoles trees found in the area. The next day they started out again to the Middle Land and the capital of Guisna. 3 days later they landed on a hill overlooking the city. Chapter 6. That morning, Bob, Jacob, and Matt walked inside the governor of Guisna's palace, the Guisna capital. The country of Guisna was very vegetated throughout the land. Lots of trees, bushes, vines, and flowers lined the streets in Middleland. Up here, the leaves on the trees had already turned colors in the early autumn days. As they walked in, they were questioned by guards, and when let in, went straight to the governor's office. "Hello, great wizard. What brings you here with the chosen ones?" asked a fine-dressed man who looked to be in his 40s. He had a large office with several sofa chairs along the wall. On the left were several bookcases, and behind him lay a large window looking east towards the countryside. "We came to beg your assistance," answered Bob. "And how may I accomplish this great pleasure?" asked the governor. These two chosen ones have been on an extremely challenging quest for the last, 7 months? They've been traveling the land, facing dangers at every turn to get the powerful gems to destroy the Dark Lord. Recently, though, Jacob here has discovered that it was all for nothing. The gems have no effect upon the Dark Lord, and now the only hope is for assistance from other neutral countries to defeat the Dark. Will you fight your part, or will you help us to destroy the Dark Lord once and for all? Exclaimed Bob. The governor thought about it for a minute and answered, I will discuss this with other leaders. This is no time for a quick answer. We have considered joining after beholding the destruction they have caused to your country, and the fact that Southerners are making their way up north, and we don't believe they will stop in Centralia, said the governor. Jacob spent a boring week as they awaited to hear Guizna's answer. Finally, 5 days later, they agreed. Throughout the week, Southerners and the Dark Lord's forces had pounded their way up along the coast on the west, and on the east had long conquered Centralia City. The country of Hebron, too, had fallen, and all had evacuated north. Just the day before, Middle Land heard news of Nashington fallen into enemy hands, and Jacob thought of the baker they had met back at the seafair city who was going there. 4 days later, after Guisna, having declared war on the southern countries, were given an invitation to meet with their troops on the south shore of Long Lake for a battle, Bob advised the governor to accept the invitation, and they did. Chapter 6. 5 days later, Jacob was standing next to Matt awaiting the battle to begin. Matt, you aren't thinking of fighting, are you? Asked Jacob. You know I am. I've been waiting for this moment my whole life. I had to miss out on the battle of Maverick, not this one. Me and Heat Dog are going to take care of these suckers real well, said Matt happily. I won't let you leave, Matt. It's way too dangerous. You die, and we need you. You're the chosen one, yelled Jacob. Calm down, Jacob. Besides, no one needs us anymore. It's not like anyone needs us anymore. The whole quest was for nothing. Now I might as well use my fire breath and dragon skills for the war effort, reasoned Matt. Matt, they don't need you. I don't want to lose my best friend, said Jacob with emotion. You won't. I'll become victorious. Besides, we'll have to wait for General Poy's speech, said Matt. General Poy walked up on top of a hill overlooking his and Guizna's army. Army of Centralia, Army of Guizna, Army of Hebron, Army of Pucana, you have come today looking for strength and honor. I have left the bitterness of bondage behind and come to lead you through a battle between good and evil, where the fate of war of our countries depend on the victory we fight for this day. For our countries, for good, for ourselves, for our families, we fight like men and die like men, exclaimed General Poy heroically. He then turned around to the opposing army. For everything we hold dear, charge! Explained General Poy. The cavalry led the charge, each horseman exclaiming their respective country. For Centralia! For Guizna! For Hebron! For Bucana! As soldiers raced into battle. Matt turned to Jacob. So long, Jake, my mate. I'll see you through new eyes soon. Eyes of a hero that Melissa couldn't resist, exclaimed Matt as he flew off on Heat Dog, both of them breathing fire. Jacob sighed. His ability was so lame sometimes. The end of part 9.